Angel Reese. I don't know. You just get a different version of her. Now, Caitlin Clark did kind of start off slow. She ended up nearly getting a triple double, and it stunned me when I got out of there and really analyzed her stats and minutes played and everything because it was kind of slow. But one thing I can say, the referees definitely played a factor in this one. Caitlin Clark ended up picking up, I believe, 4 fouls in this game. But I actually visualized these referees not just targeting Caitlin Clark, but targeting the entire Indiana Fever team. Like, it's a real thing.
Something significant occurred during the Indiana Fever's halftime against Atlanta, and reporters went straight to Caitlin Clark about it after the game. The situation had been circulating without much verified detail, but Clark addressed it directly in her post-game availability. Before getting to her comments, the game itself deserves context. Going in, the Fever were not widely expected to win. The one reason for skepticism about Atlanta's chances was Angel Reese. There is a version of Clark that tends to show up specifically when Reese is on the opposite side of the floor, and it showed again here. Clark started slowly, but by the end, she had nearly put together a triple-double. Her final stat line, when measured against her minutes and the pace of the game, was more impressive than it appeared at first glance.
Entire Indiana Fever team. Like, it's a real thing. And like, just to see it in person and to see these no fouls go down is beyond me, guys. I can't even lie. Like, it's one thing to see it on TV, but to see this stuff in live action and see them just blatantly, like you're blatantly doing this, bro. It was stunning. I can't even lie, guys. It was just stunning. It's like whenever you're watching it on TV or maybe you see a clip online, you don't really get a chance to see the 360 view, the eye-level view of everything. Now,
the officiating was a notable factor throughout. Clark drew 4 fouls called in her favor, but the number of times contact went uncalled on her and on the Fever more broadly was visible to anyone watching closely. There is a difference between reading about calls not being made and seeing it from a floor-level vantage point. From the stands, the pattern was hard to miss. Clark's visible frustration with officials throughout the game becomes easier to understand in that context. On the halftime situation, Clark explained it plainly. She had eaten some applesauce. It came back up, and then everything else in her stomach followed.
Everything. Now, everybody want to say why Caitlin Clark complaining to the referees so bad. Bro, if y'all literally was at the game and you seen these no fouls, and I got footage of it, bro. I'm going to do a whole video series on this game whenever I get back home inside my studio. Like, so be prepared. A lot of content and different footage to come out. Watch this video. Like, I'm breaking down all the footage that I got. Hours and clips. It's a bunch of footage. But make a long story short, man, just I get the frustration from Caitlin. I have to, guys.
She found a trash can, spent time thinking she might stay down, and then found that once it was over, she felt lighter. She said she was running well in the second half and felt fine returning to the floor, though she noted her voice was starting to go. When asked about her overall performance despite the illness, Clark said she would have liked a few more shots to fall, but was clear that she considered this one of the best floor games she had played in a long time. She felt she guarded well, was aggressive defensively, ran the offense without forcing things, and found teammates in positions where they could be productive. She pointed to the Fever winning the glass battle and forcing more turnovers than Atlanta typically gives up, as signs the team executed the right way. The third quarter was the turning point. Clark made a 3. The team got Kelsey Mitchell going in transition, and the game shifted from there.
I have to, guys. I mean, this here was nasty, bro. Like, when she go off on the refs, I damn near could justify it. I can prove to you guys that she's not the problem. Like, they literally just... It's bad, man, but let's check out this scene that occurred during the Indiana Fever halftime. Let's roll it.
described it as the kind of short burst, an 8-0 run, that changes the entire feel of a contest, and said the Fever kept their foot down through the fourth quarter against every Atlanta push, where the two of them made physical contact. In celebration, Clark laughed that she could have genuinely hurt. White, given her recent surgeries, then said she would not want to play for a coach who stood there passively. She said, "The energy and passion White shows is something that gets her going, that the chest bump got her fired up, and that the emotion in that moment was reflective of how the whole night felt. Rather than 4 individual moments, asked about what the win meant for team morale following the difficult stretch the previous weekend, Clark said she would put it as gently as she could. She hoped it would make a lot of people be quiet. She acknowledged there will always be conversation and said she respects that, but pushed back on the idea that the situation inside the locker room was anything like what was being reported externally. She was specific. The stories about where the locker room stood, what her teammates thought of her, what the coaches thought, were not accurate.
The Browns score their opponent in the third quarter of any home game. You score free medium-sized cheeseburger. Visit Culver's.com/Fever to sign in or sign up for a free delicious rewards account and receive your free medium cheeseburger with any order through tomorrow at participating Indianapolis area Culver's location. The Women's National Basketball Association, Indiana Fever, and Cambridge.
The group is connected. They had not been playing their best basketball, and one good game does not mean they have arrived where they want to be, but it showed what they are capable of, and said something about the character of the people in that room. On the defensive performance specifically, Atlanta was held under 30 in the first half, a season low for the Dream. Clark credited limiting three-point attempts, keeping Atlanta's leading scorers from getting into rhythm, winning the glass, and not giving up easy points off turnovers. She described the pressure the Fever applied as something that made it hard for Atlanta to find the looks they wanted, and said the ability to switch coverages confidently was a sign of a defense that was genuinely communicating. There was a moment in the third quarter that shifted how the whole situation around Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White should be read.
Cambridge Fieldhouse seeks to foster a safe, comfortable, and enjoyable sports and entertainment experience. Please be advised that fans engaging in any disruptive behavior, such as fighting, gambling-related harassment, throwing objects, attempting to enter...
That was Caitlin Clark doing halftime, man. Now, just like I said, she did speak to reporters immediately after this game. Let's roll what she had to say right now.
How are you feeling, Caitlin, and can you take us through what happened at halftime?
Yeah, I mean, a little sick, but I don't know. I tried to...
Clark hit one of the more remarkable shots of her professional career. The kind of release that just leaves defenders standing still. Then, on the very next possession, running the break, she found Kelsey Mitchell for a score and pushed the margin to 4 top tone. Dot called. And what happened in that timeout is the part worth paying attention to. Clark went straight to Stephanie White. They embraced.
Yeah, I mean, a little sick, but I don't know. I tried to eat some applesauce, and then it just came up, and then everything else in my stomach also came up, so I thought I was going to stay down, and then I found a trash can, thank God, and I haven't puked that much in a really long time, so, but then I feel fine. I felt light, so I was running around feeling good in the second half, but I feel okay. Obviously, I'm losing my voice a little bit, but I'll be good.
You just said you felt light. It seems like you're having a lot of fun out there.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about your game tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to shoot the ball a little bit better. I could have, even if a couple more go down, not that I...
And White was visibly emotional, close to tears. Not coaching staff celebrates a big shot emotional. Something heavier than that. The narrative that White and Clark have some kind of antagonistic relationship, that White wants Clark gone, that there is genuine personal animosity between them, runs directly into that moment, because two people who dislike each other do not look like that. What that interaction showed was not friction.
Even if a couple more go down, not that I shot it like horribly, but other than that, like I feel like this is probably one of the best floor games I've played in a really long time. I thought I guarded really well, was aggressive on defense, got us into what we wanted to get into on offense, found my teammates in spots for it to make them successful. So overall, I honestly thought I played a really good game, and you know, the way we played as a team was great as well, and we got to keep doing that. And if we're able to guard like that and, you know, limit the other team to, you know, the things that they want to do really well, I think we beat them on the glass.
It showed two people who understand exactly what kind of position they are both in. That is the thing that gets lost in the louder version of this story. White took the head coaching job in Indiana, and a significant part of that decision was Clark being on the roster. That is not a controversial claim. It is just true. And so White is now in a situation where her own standing within the organization is connected to how things go with Clark. If Clark is moved, or if results do not improve, White's future with the program becomes uncertain too.
People believing it. Now that's the biggest problem, is you've got people believing it. So you can see immediately after this what happens. There's a timeout. Caitlin immediately stray for Stephanie White. They end up hugging it out. And not only that, like if you haven't seen even closer, Steph White's almost crying. Like, Steph White, it is very, very clear.
They are linked. Clark, meanwhile, is surrounded by noise she largely appears to be filtering out. But she is not naive. A prolonged slump, a losing record, a fractured relationship with the front office. Any of that has consequences for both of them, not just one. So the reaction from White after that sequence, nearly in tears after a 3 and an assist in a key stretch, is almost certainly carrying more weight than just the moment on the court. There is a reasonable case that what played out on the sideline was relief.
Very, very clear. If you see the way they're speaking, they're not, like, the way they talk with each other, the way they interact with each other. Steph White and Caitlin Clark are not dumb enough to not think that they are this close to being split up. One of them is this close to being gone. And Steph White took the job because of Caitlin Clark. A big time reason why Steph White took the job was because of Caitlin Clark. To say otherwise would be crazy.
That performance may have bought Clark more time within an organization where not everyone is aligned on keeping her, because that part appears to be real. The idea that there are people inside the Fever structure who view Clark as a problem. Too loud, too demanding, too disruptive to the existing culture is not a fringe take invented on the internet. There are people in that building who feel that way. The question is how far up that sentiment reaches and whether it has organizational weight behind it. White does not appear to be one of those people.
It was because of Caitlin Clark. To say otherwise would be crazy. A big reason why she took the job was Caitlin Clark. So you're then talking about it like you took the job for this one player. And it's all, and now you're in a position where if things don't go well, because I fully believe there are people in the organization that don't want Caitlin Clark there. Absolutely. And I believe
the distinction matters. White's frustration with Clark, to the extent any exists, seems to be a coaching philosophy disagreement, not a personal campaign to remove her. There is a meaningful gap between a coach who sometimes clashes with a player over how the game should be played and a coach who is actively working against that player's interests. The coaching fit itself is a separate and legitimate issue. White may simply not be the right tactical match for what Clark needs to operate at the highest level. That can be true at the same time as White genuinely wanting the partnership to succeed.
There are probably other people involved that don't want Stephanie White there. I don't think it's either of them. The fact is, again, you're seeing Steph White almost crying while hugging Caitlin Clark. Because they're both smart enough to know what's going on around them. Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White want to win together. But they're not dumb. They're not dumb. They know that if
both things coexist, what the sideline moment made clear is that despite all the surrounding chaos, the media narratives, the internal politics, the anonymous quotes, the trade speculation, Clark and White are trying to get somewhere together. Whether the environment they are operating in allows that to happen is the real question. Clark is currently among the league leaders in scoring. The performance is there, the tension is coming from somewhere else entirely.
that if Steph knows that if Caitlin's not putting butts in seats and not hitting shots and not doing well, she might be fired. Caitlin knows that if they're in a slump, Caitlin's probably ignoring it mostly, but like she's smart enough to know, again, if she's in a slump, it could either get Steph White fired or her gone. Because basketball is a game of wins or losses. They clearly like each other. There clearly are massive philosophical differences in how they want to play the game. But I'm going to be real here. They both want to win together. And they know that if things don't change, that's not going to happen. Because they're going to be split up. They're going to be split up if things didn't change. Which is why you can see the reaction here. And I genuinely think we need to stop this whole Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White hate each other as people. Or Stephanie White wants Caitlin Clark gone. I think there's a lot of very valid criticism. I think Stephanie White's been naive. I think Stephanie White has been incredibly naive as a coach. I don't think she's the right coach for Caitlin Clark and this Indiana Fever team. I don't think naturally she is. But let's be real. Both Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark are on the hot seat. If nothing was to change in the style of play, into what we were seeing out on the floor, they're going to be split up. Like, if the Indiana Fever are a 500 team this year, the likelihood of Caitlin Clark being traded is probably 50-50.